Something is working. The reports look good. The dashboards show adoption. People are using the tools, and yet something feels off. The timelines haven't changed. The headcount is the same. The bottlenecks that existed before the rollout, still there, just with a slightly different shape. Most companies at this stage do one of two things. They blame the technology, or they push harder, more training, more tools, more adoption targets. Neither of those is the right move, because the problem isn't what they think it is. I want to walk you through what's actually happening inside companies that have technically successful AI rollouts, and why the numbers can look good while the business stays exactly the same. You're watching an AI clone. This is intentional. My name is Ronald, and AI is already part of how we work every day at Data Wonder, the company behind this channel. We build AI automation and voice agent systems for real businesses, insurance companies, accounting firms, medical clinics, organizations where the work is dense, the data is sensitive, and the costs of inefficiency are concrete. This channel exists because most AI content doesn't reflect what actually happens inside those companies. This one does. If that's the kind of analysis you're looking for, calm, grounded, no hype, subscribe. That's what we do here. Now, back to the rollout that's working, but isn't. Here's the pattern I've seen across a dozen client engagements in the last 2 years. A company announces an AI initiative. There's budget, there's a sponsor in leadership, and there's real momentum. The tools get selected, the licenses get purchased, training sessions happen, and within a few months, adoption numbers climb. Employees are logging in, features are being used. By every visible metric, the initiative is succeeding. And then the quarterly review comes around, and someone asks, "Where did the savings go?" That question usually lands in an awkward silence, because the savings should be there, in theory. The math was clear when this started. If the AI handles 40% of routine document processing, and 3 people were spending half their time on that, you've recovered meaningful capacity. The numbers checked out, but the capacity didn't show up anywhere. This is the part that doesn't make it into case studies, and it's the part that I think matters most. Here's what's really happening. When AI takes over a task, say drafting initial correspondence, or flagging anomalies in a dataset, or routing inbound requests, the humans involved don't disappear. They shift. They move sideways into adjacent work. They fill the recovered time with other things that were always on the list but never had space. Longer email threads, more meetings, more review cycles, more checking the AI's output to make sure it's right. The time didn't disappear. It just redistributed. And because nobody was tracking where it went, because the KPIs were built around adoption, not output, the redistribution was invisible. Does this sound familiar? Have you seen this in your own organization? Someone does a quick audit and realizes that the team using the AI tool is actually busier than before, not less busy. And there's genuine confusion about how that's possible. It's possible because the rollout solved the wrong layer of the problem. There's a reason this keeps happening across very different companies in very different industries, and it has nothing to do with the quality of the tools. I'll get to that. But first, let's talk about what a surface-level success actually looks like from the inside. In an insurance company, surface-level success looks like this. Claims processors are using an AI-assisted review tool. The tool surfaces relevant policy clauses automatically. It reduces the time per review by maybe 15%. Adoption is strong. The team likes the tool. Metrics are green. But the claims processing queue is the same length it was 12 months ago. Because the 15% time saving per claim was absorbed by the volume increase that happened independently of the rollout. And nobody modeled for that. In an accounting firm, surface-level success looks like this. Junior staff are using an AI tool to draft client reports. Output quality is more consistent. Partners review fewer formatting errors. Training time for new hires dropped. but billing rates haven't changed. Client throughput hasn't changed. The partners are still the bottleneck, now just reviewing AI drafted content instead of human drafted content. Two completely different industries, same pattern. Here's where I want to shift because this is where the real issue sits, and it's not where most people look. The surface level rollout problem isn't a technology failure, it's a design failure. Specifically, it's a failure to model what happens after the automation lands. Most rollouts are designed to the moment of adoption. The implementation plan ends there. Success is measured at the point where humans start using the tool, but the actual value, the cost savings, the capacity recovery, the efficiency gain, doesn't happen at adoption. It happens at what you do with the recovered capacity. And that requires a second decision that most companies never make. What do we do with the time? It sounds obvious. It isn't, because the time doesn't materialize automatically in a form you can see and allocate. It fragments. It disperses across 20 people in small increments. Nobody has 40 freed up hours to reassign. Everyone has 90 freed up minutes spread across the week. And 90 minutes doesn't feel like capacity. It feels like margin. And margin gets filled. This is the second order effect that breaks most AI rollouts. Not the first order effect, the automation of the task. That part usually works. The second order effect is the diffusion of recovered time into the existing workload pattern, with no mechanism to capture and redirect it. Think about what that means in practice. You spent months deploying an AI system. You paid for the implementation. You paid for the training. You paid for the change management. You changed the workflow. And at the end of all of that, the operational output of the business is unchanged, because the time savings dissolved before anyone could use them. That's not a technology story. That's a management story. The companies that actually get the ROI from AI deployments, the ones where the savings show up in the numbers, not just the dashboards, those companies do one thing differently. They treat capacity recovery as a separate work stream from the technical deployment. They plan for what happens after the automation. They assign ownership to the question of where the time goes. Sometimes that means reducing headcount on a specific function. Sometimes it means shifting team members to higher value work that was previously unaffordable. Sometimes it means absorbing growth without adding staff. The specific answer varies, but the point is, there is an answer, and it's decided in advance, not discovered in retrospect. This is what I mean when I say that AI initiatives fail organizationally, not technically. The technology does what it's supposed to do. The system performs, but the value is lost in the space between the tool and the decision. If you've been finding this useful, a quick like helps the channel reach more people who think about AI the same way. That's genuinely how this content gets in front of the right audience. Now here's the part that most rollout postmortems miss entirely. The diffusion problem doesn't just waste the investment. It actively trains the organization to undervalue AI. Think about the employee experience. You introduced a new tool. You made it part of their workflow. They adapted. And 6 months later, leadership is asking where the ROI is, implying that something isn't working. From where the employee sits, they did everything right. They adopted the tool, they changed their behavior, and now they're being told the numbers aren't there. What does that teach them about the next initiative? It teaches them that AI projects are always promised big and deliver confusion. It teaches them that adoption metrics are what leadership cares about, not outcomes. It teaches them to comply with future mandates without engaging with them. You haven't just lost the ROI on this deployment. You've made the next one harder. This is the compounding cost of the surface level success. It's not just the lost savings from one initiative. It's the organizational skepticism that accumulates, the cynicism that builds, the quiet resistance that greets every future rollout with a "we've seen this before" energy. That energy is very hard to reverse once it sets in. So what's the practical way forward? The rollout design needs to include a capacity plan. Before the tool goes live, there should be a documented answer to the question: when this saves X hours per week across this team, where do those hours go? That answer needs to be owned by someone, not tracked as a general metric specifically owned. The measurement framework needs to shift from adoption to output. Not are people using the tool, but has the operational output of this function changed? Those are completely different questions, and most companies are only asking the first one. And the leadership conversation needs to happen earlier, not after the deployment, not when the quarterly review surfaces the gap, but before the implementation plan is finalized. Because the implementation plan shapes what gets measured, and what gets measured shapes what actually changes. The companies that do this well are the ones where someone in the room asked, "What do we do after this works?" That's a harder question than it sounds, but it's the right one to ask. If what I described today sounds like something you're navigating inside your own company, whether that's the diffusion problem, the measurement gap, or the organizational skepticism that builds after a surface-level rollout, you're welcome to book a call. We work through exactly this with companies deploying AI in insurance, accounting, and healthcare. The link is right below this video. And I'm curious, have you seen this pattern play out in your company? Where did the time savings go after your last AI deployment? Leave it in the comments. The honest answers are usually more informative than the case studies.